Hi, I'm Anuj Rastogi, Managing Director with Backstretch. We help the most promising and high impact companies find the best possible people. Hiring is broken. Like it's just broken across the board. And I had this realization earlier this year that there's this weird tragedy playing out in front of all of us right now. You've got tens of thousands of people looking for work while people are being laid off every other day by all of these different companies. And at the same time, you've got tens of thousands of jobs in the market. Like you go on LinkedIn, you go on Indeed, you go on any of these job boards, wherever you go, there's literally thousands and thousands of jobs. So the tragedy is that with thousands of people looking for companies and thousands of companies looking for people, they just can't find each other because the system is just broken. And that has repercussions because that's families impacted, that's communities impacted. So what we do is really think about hiring from a base principles perspective, right? Ultimately, the biggest investment that any organization is going to make is going to be in the people. And when you're building a business is actually a team sport, right? You're not just thinking about individuals, you're thinking about combinations of individuals that are going to build the type of resilience, the type of culture, and the type of inertia to help take that business and that mission further. So there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, but a big part of what we do is making sure that we really get to know our clients, what drives them, what mission they're on, what purpose they're looking for. And we're specialists on people. There's people who focus on industries, who focus on sectors or a particular type of role. We really look for the things that make an individual exceptional. The things that are, often classified as soft skills, the types of things that you might not think of as easy to put on a resume, but many of those things are what determines whether someone's going to truly be successful or not and really be able to drive impact. We work generally with small and medium companies who are looking to grow. In some cases, it might be slowly. In other cases, it might be really quickly. Often it's small companies of 5 to 10 or 10 to 20 people who are looking to make that next milestone. And the one thing with hiring is the smaller the company, the more outsized an impact every single hire actually has, right? And we often forget this, that most companies, most startups will fail to be successful within the next 5 years, right? If you look around at a room of 10 different founders, and this is something actually that I was talking to and I learned from our founder, Matt. If you were in a room of 10 different founders, 5 years from now, it's likely that only one of them will still be standing in that same business. There's a whole number of reasons as to why that's the case, but it almost always comes down to the team that they were able to put in place early on. So we typically work with smaller companies and companies that are looking to scale. From the 11 to 20 or 20 to 50 or 50 and up. Just to give you an example, we worked with Certain, who is an amazing success story out of Victoria, BC. They had secured a Series B, pretty significant amount of money back in 2023, but they needed to scale fast, and they were having all sorts of challenges with hiring and with the quality of the talent pipeline. Fast forward, we partnered with them, and in 19 months, we did 194 hires. We basically just blew the company up in terms of the amount of critical mass of talent. Many of those people are still there. Many have gone on to have great careers there. We're working with a really exciting company in California, Clinexus. We've done nearly 60 hires in about 9 months there. So that's just to give you a sense of some of the faster growing companies that we've worked with. In other cases, we've placed 1 or 2 or 3 or 8 people over some period of time. So it really depends on the individual company. But yeah, small and medium companies that are growing. Canada, I feel like, has found a little bit of extra wind in its sails lately, which is actually really exciting. I think we really should take pride in this country for a whole number of reasons. If we want to talk about technology, the original lipid research that was actually done, which ultimately led to the mRNA delivery mechanism for vaccines and other drugs, that research started at UBC. If you want to look at companies like RIM, and the BlackBerry, and being able to actually at a large scale put computing and mobile into the hands of millions of people around the world. That came out of Canada too. The godfather of much of what's considered modern AI, Geoffrey Hinton, is from the University of Toronto. Uh, if you look across the board, there's so many different technology innovations that have come out of Canada. And many of them have gone on to have a global impact, and we very quickly lose sight of the original roots. So I do think there's something unique about the climate that we're in Canada, not just in terms of weather and it being cold part of the year and you having to tinker away in a lab or in a room, but the way that people kind of come together from different parts of the world and share ideas and spend time with those ideas, I think has an outsized impact. So if I project that forward, I do think that Canadian companies have an extremely important role to play in how the world's going to progress, because with the higher education, with the science and technology capabilities that we have, a lot of interesting, R&D funding that's available here, plus the talent pool, right? Like we really do get many of the best from around the world here coming together and tinkering. Because of that, I think we can have an outsized impact, but we need to get out of our own way. I think we need to take ourselves seriously. We need to be able to tell the world what we're actually capable of, but we also then need to go about showing it. I'm really just I'm positive about the future here for sure, especially on the technology front, just because of the people that we've got. We haven't yet fully realized the potential of the talent that's right here. So if you want to cross a bunch of different dimensions, for example, if you want to look at energy, right? We've got some pretty significant critical mass in different pockets of the country with acumen in energy, whether that's oil and gas, whether that's geothermal, whether that's green tech, whether it's wind. We have a lot of that type of subject matter expertise here. We obviously have a lot of depth in agriculture. We have a lot of depth from, I think, a global experience, just because immigration in particular has made this such an increasingly diverse population. We've got people with perspectives from all around the world, right? Now, whether that is in terms of languages, whether it's in terms of backgrounds, whether it's in the terms of the types of problems that were being solved in the places that people have come from, when you bring that type of thinking into this context, you actually get an opportunity to jam and throw around ideas in a unique way, right? Like we basically have the entire world in many parts of our country, like within several square blocks of each other. So I think that we have an opportunity to go deeper and take the talent that we have more seriously, for sure. And I do think a big part of that's going to be recognizing the value, not just in the large cities, in the Torontos, the Vancouvers, the Montreals, but there's so many other parts of the country that have a lot to offer, and that talent is just, I think, waiting to be harnessed. I think we need to do a better job of actually connecting across the country. I think the richness of the post-secondary institutions is actually pretty exceptional, right? People come from all around the world to these universities. Now, within that context, there's a lot of research and development that happens in all sorts of sectors, right? There's a lot of pioneering research that's happening there. So out of those institutions, there's a lot of commercial opportunities for the technology that comes from it. Now, you need to be able to have a robust enough talent pipeline and a population that can bring the skills that you need. So we have that in our workforce. I think because we have such a diverse population as well, people who are educated all around the world, they're bringing a lot of those experiences here. So I think we've got some unique conditions there. Then you couple that, historically, we've had obviously very significant trade relationships with the US, but I think we're at a moment in time where we realize there's a whole other world out there, right? There's connections and bridges that we should be building. We should continue, obviously, to trade as much as we can with the US, but we have an opportunity to build new alliances, new partnerships with other countries, where there's an opportunity to provide what they need and for us to get something as well out of it. It really is a win-win. So I think from that sphere, it's important that Canada maintain the best diplomatic and political and trade relationships it possibly can, but it needs to be seen as not a place to just come to and settle. It needs to be seen as a place where you'll find exceptional ideas, exceptional talent. So I'm bullish on it because I believe that all of that is true. I just don't think we do a good enough job of telling that story. Like if you tell somebody, and a lot of us when we travel, if you tell somebody that this artist is from Canada or that company or that technology was invented in Canada, people are usually surprised. And then the very next reaction is, why didn't I know about this? Right? That's on us. That's on nobody else to tell our story. So I'm really excited to be part of Tech for Canada for a bunch of reasons. One, in order to have experiences, you need to have a space and a place for those experiences. And space and place is not just buildings with, a roof and some walls, right? It's creating an environment where people want to be and be in a certain mindset to be able to connect with certain people in certain ways. So I think you've created some great community here, which is amazing. The other thing here is that when we talk about tech for Canada, like we really should be thinking about the for part. I think for is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. There's tech, which we tend to think is global and agnostic, and maybe it'll find a market somewhere else, etc. But if we're solving our own problems here for people in Canada, for our rural communities, for our northern communities, for our cities, for our towns, we win. And it's more than likely that the use cases that we're solving for here can then actually be applied elsewhere in the world too, right? So I find often this has been something I've looked back in my career, and many of the people I've met, we're often trying to solve problems that we feel are somewhat global or generic, or maybe for another market, but we don't do the business of actually serving ourselves. So I think that the for is really important in the Tech for Canada. The other part here is that if you look at certain communities, why is Hollywood in LA? Why is Silicon Valley in California? Why do you see certain pockets of industry cluster in certain places? There's nothing particularly different about any one of these places. It's just that a certain group of people has built a critical mass there to have that conversation. Now, Canada being as large as it is geographically sometimes makes it feel like it's hard to cross the country and come together. But I think we have that opportunity to do more of this, right? And I think we need to take a view of the country that's not just, again, Vancouver centric or Toronto centric or Montreal centric, but is bigger than that, right? So bringing in people from different places in the country, combined with, I think, the inertia and the momentum that happens when you get people who are actually really seriously thinking about solving real problems, making a difference, being able to riff and bounce off ideas with each other. It just creates an inertia of its own, right? Like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And so I think Tech for Canada, hopefully more of this is happening across the country, right? And more people from across the country are connecting in all these ways, because this is, I think, a signal for us to take ourselves seriously and to realize how much great potential we have here.